Hello, and welcome to Alcohol Free Radio. I'm your host, Chris Becker, and I'm excited to have you join us. Whether you're new to the amazing and growing alcohol-free community or someone who is already familiar, we hope you enjoy this program. This is where you can hear from some people that we think are making a real difference, whether as brewers or producers of amazing beverages, influencers in the community, authors, storytellers, and I'm sure more. We aim to break it down and bring it all together. Our goal is simple: to build awareness about this great community and help make alcohol-free fun, easy, and tasting great. So here we go. Enjoy. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining Alcohol Free Radio and this upcoming episode. I'm excited to get you a chance to listen to my interview with Evan Quinn, co-founder and CEO of Hiyo, one of the early trailblazers in the US in particular, with the category ready to drink, but really just alcohol-free flavors and trailblazer. So hope you enjoy. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for attending or coming to this episode of Alcohol Free Radio. I am excited to get a chance to introduce you to Evan Quinn, CEO and founder of Hiyo. Evan is somebody I've had a chance to meet over the course of probably the last few years. So it's been really exciting to see the growth and journey that Hiyo has been on. So we'll be diving into that a bit more, but welcome, Evan.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me, Chris. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for the time. So maybe before we dive kind of into the journey of Hiyo, the company, tell us a bit more about yourself, how you ended up getting into this category, what you were doing before, and how we ended up speaking here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my backstory, so myself and I founded Hiyo with two co-founders, so I'll give their backstory as well.
Great.
It's
Absolutely.
integral to how we created Hiyo. So we all went to undergrad together at USC in Southern California, became best friends there. So George, one of my co-founders,
Right.
is my ultimate best friend. Signe, she's a good girlfriend of ours as well. After college, my background, I went into the finance world working at a company called Guggenheim Partners, which is a global investment advisory business. And then as soon as I feel like in finance, you either have to go get your MBA or go get your CFA. And so they kind of push you out the door to go get one of those certifications. And as they pushed me out the door to go get my MBA, George and I started talking about creating a company together.
Okay.
My background, obviously being finance and pretty agnostic to various industries. He was already in the CPG space, cutting his teeth in sales and marketing over at Red Bull.
Oh, wow.
And then working for a health food startup called Snack Nation Karoo, where he was helping kind of emerging founders with go-to-market strategies. And I think his shtick is always like, well, I see that they can do it. Like, why couldn't I do it?
Right.
So we started cooking up some ideas together. And as I was in my first year at UCLA getting my MBA, we were thinking about various beverage concepts, started pulling on the sleeve of our third co-founder, Signe, saying, hey, she's a graphic designer by trade, worked at WME Endeavor for 7 or 8 years, spinning up brands internally. And we're like, hey, can you build us a logo? Can you build us some packaging?
Right.
Can you build us a full-fledged brand? Can you come on full-time and be our third co-founder? So
Nice.
It kind of escalated like that, where, we were really cooking this thing up as a part of my master's thesis. And, I think I never wanted to start something alone. I always wanted to start something with other co-founders. And it just so happened that not only are we all really good friends, so we know how each other operate and tick and how to do conflict resolution together and really build this thing together, but we have very complementary skill sets.
Right.
With, me kind of running like the finance ops world, George kind of runs sales, and Signe runs kind of brand and marketing. So,
okay. Yeah, it does sound like a great combo. Tell me a bit about, so with that as backstory and how you kind of got started. I know kind of what year was that? And then I think trying to talk about however many chapters you want, but I think of kind of when we first spoke or first met, however long ago, kind of the bootstrap startup phase, and then kind of where you're at now and what have been some of the similarities and contrasts.
Well, just to get into the backstory of Hiyo. So, the story I just described is probably 2018 when I was getting my first year of my MBA. Yep. At the time, George and I were thinking about creating a different functional beverage, not even in this space. And then a pretty traumatic moment happened to both of us in April of 2019, where we both had family members hospitalized with alcohol-related incidents.
Okay.
And as we were crafting this drink that we felt like was going to be this mood-boosting, stress-relieving drink, we really saw in our own lives where we were still going out on
Right.
the west side of Los Angeles, being social butterflies, that there was this emerging space of like non-alcoholic options that needed more optionality. And, it was based upon the need that we saw in our own lives and in our family members' lives where, they couldn't drink anymore and we wanted to
Yeah.
drink less. And we went out to a bar and we're like, what do you guys have that's non-alc? And they're like, I don't know, Red Bull or
Right.
sugary mocktails or, boring soda waters and limes. So that really hit the light bulb of, hey, we should create an option that gives people a similar stress relieving, mood boosting feel that they're usually looking for from alcohol,
Right.
but instead have it come from healthy, functional ingredients. So in kind of my second year of my MBA, we started researching the sober curious movement,
Okay.
saw that it was an emerging space. I think at the time there was a few key players, but still very nascent.
Yep.
What we wanted to do at its core was create a brand that was as accessible as possible because the mission of this category is to help people drink less. And in order to do that, we wanted to create the brand and the product that resonated with the most amount of people. So for us, that meant flavor profiles that are down the middle, a little
Yeah.
bit more fruit forward, a little bit sweeter, but still complex enough to be a good replacement to an adult
Right.
non-alcoholic beverage. The functionality, like I already mentioned, we wanted it to have come from adaptogens and nootropics and functional
Okay.
botanicals that don't lend themselves to abuse. We're FDA GRAS, all natural. We are the only USDA organic brand in the category, so being USDA organic was really
Wow.
important to
Right.
us, and we wanted to make sure if you were taking something out like alcohol, you could feel something with the non-alcoholic option. So
Sure.
the functionality was a key point for us as well. Um, and then a price point that didn't break the bank and a brand that was, again, as accessible and warm and approachable as possible. People, when they choose to drink less or choose to not drink at all, that can feel like an ostracizing or fairly kind of lonely decision or moment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think Hiyo, with what Hiyo stands for, it stands for happy in your own. We wanted half the battle to be like creating the best liquid possible, but also creating a brand that was there for people, was there to support people through their journeys with alcohol, whatever that may be. So just wanting to create, again, the most accessible brand possible. And that's really the antithesis of Hiyo, and what we were creating in my second year of grad school. And at least the start of Hiyo was we won a venture competition in my second year of grad
Oh
school,
wow.
which was a $40,000 grant. And we spun that into our first production run.
Okay.
And from there, we went on about a year journey of trying to raise some money to kick things off. Maybe I'll pause there because I've
Yeah. No,
been
I think
talking at you
that's
for a minute.
maybe where our stories cross. First of all, I love the branding,
Yeah.
positioning. I think there's some similarity there in terms of this isn't about losing something or feeling left out. And I think that's a
Mm,
big piece of what I'm trying to do is, you don't feel like you're not normal, but you still have adult options and that there's something you're gaining. There's positivity, empowerment. So I think there's some alignment there. And I think that's when about our paths cross. And I still, now looking back, kicking myself, I remember you were raising that money and I think you were on your way to your first production run or second in the Midwest. So yeah, that makes sense. And then obviously that has all kinds of trials and tribulations for the three of you, and how not to in any way shorten all of the challenges that you've been through as you've going through that. And if there's anything calling out more towards, other people in the space, if there's any particular lessons learned, would love to hear those. But then also, where did that lead you? So, you're getting there, those
yeah.
production runs end up the following production runs to more towards where you are now. So for those of you who might be listening, you guys are, it's 2020, it's spring, it's 2024. You guys are doing great. And, we certainly see that
Yeah.
in our channels. So would love to hear a bit more about how that's been progressing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, from that moment, the moment of when we incepted the idea in April 2019, we cooked up the idea for the next 2 years. So we didn't launch the brand until May of 2021.
Okay.
So it definitely took a while to ensure that when you launch, it's not necessarily, a specific date, but it's more of when people experience you for the first time.
Right.
But we wanted to make sure we were putting our best foot forward. I think the early days, I wouldn't say one of the tribulations, but one of the strategies we had was trying to do a channel strategy that made a lot of sense in order for like our bandwidth, the capital constraints we had, and just trying to meet customers where they are, and not spread ourselves too thin across a bunch of different channels. So in the early days of Hiyo, we found a lot of success going direct to consumer. I think at the time, this is 2021,
Sure.
retail conversations weren't as warm on the
Yeah.
category. So there was a lot of pent up demand for these types
Yeah.
of products. And the only
Pandemic.
place to really find them was
Yeah.
online. So we ended up being laser focused, have a small team. Again, there's the three co-founders and, at the time. And, for a long time, it was just the three co-founders, and we brought on our director of growth as our first employee in October of 2022, I believe, but, kept it a very lean team. And I
Yeah.
think as we saw a lot of success in D2C, we just kind of kept pouring fuel on the fire,
Okay.
in terms of ad spend, first starting with Facebook and Instagram and then layering in Google later in 2021 and finally, TikTok and email marketing and subscription in 2022. So it was really about trying to stay laser focused on building the brand online. I
Yeah.
think for us, when we've deviated from, adding into the channel mix, it always has felt like a natural and organic time where, in about summer of 2022, we felt like, okay, this stool has like one really solid leg, and that was built on direct consumer. Like, let's give it a second one. So started going, into more retail and specifically natural specialty. We wanted to focus on that channel because customers in that channel kind of already know a bit about like adaptogenic and nootropic ingredients and functional beverage. And they're more likely to be the entry point for how we get into retail with a product like Hiyo.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like one of the best things we ever did was exactly that channel mix where we have this online kind of army of folks that, we really proved out the concept with, but like people don't traditionally buy beverages online. And if they do, they're probably going to Amazon, and we haven't even launched Amazon. We're actually
Yeah.
launching Amazon next month.
I can
But
vouch for
we're like,
that,
okay,
Evan.
well,
It's true.
yeah. Well, it's like, well, what if we just meet people where they traditionally buy beverages in the store, right?
Yeah.
So, I think the natural progression of our channel strategy has been really helpful. And when we do launch in new, retail accounts, what gets people excited is we have this army of online customers that want to find us more locally. It's the number one piece of feedback that we get, and we send dedicated
Okay.
emails. We do
Interesting.
geofenced ads. We can just really activate our digital
That's
our
amazing. Yeah.
digital community to drive them to shelf. So I think that's been a little bit of our secret sauce of how we dominated direct consumer and then layered that into retail, and then now have used that to effectively be our cheat code for being kind of category leading in terms of velocities in retail.
That's great. And I like how the idea of you're converting or bringing, because everybody online lives somewhere. So if you're able to bring them
Right.
into your bricks and mortar channel strategy, that makes a lot of sense. I know a couple of weeks ago, and I remember my team was calling this out. You had some I'll say viral. I don't know what the definition of something counting as viral, but it's had some viral-ish moments online. Can you talk a bit more about that? You mentioned some of maybe your customers or your dedicated kind of repeat customers. A little bit more about that. How did that come about? What kind of engagement were you seeing? Did it surprise you? And then maybe how that culminated to a couple tentpole events like what happened on TikTok a little while ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you see moments like that of virality, you think it's kind of an overnight sensation. But
Sure.
I think Big Flowers goes out to our marketing team with Signy, and Maddie on our team over here.
Okay.
Where, as we analyzed it, it was, we did a dry January campaign where we seeded influencers that led to, that UGC campaign led to, again, I'm not the best to talk about it, but like, what is called Sleepy Girl mocktail on TikTok, where,
Okay.
another piece of creative from one of our campaigns, and a creator that we like to work with a lot. And I think that that moment spurred that moment. And then there was one creator who from that video went and purchased Hiyo at a local grocery store and did a review
Okay.
of, I think, our peach mango SKU. And from there, a few other videos where you're just kind of reviewing our peach mango
Right.
started to take off. And I think in TikTok, people try to hook people in, really quickly. And the shtick that like started, the hook that started happening with people was, this is the drink that gets you drunk, but is non-alcoholic. And I think what's really interesting is like, we didn't craft that narrative. We don't say like, we are very, very, it is very important to us to always set expectations with our customers. We do not say Hiyo gets you drunk, Hiyo gets you high, Hiyo inebriates you at all. Like
Sure.
honestly, as you know, like we've branded the term the float. Like we want that floaty feeling,
Okay.
because it's one, wholly ours, and two, it sets expectations in a way that we're telling people they're not going to get drunk, they're not going to get high, they're not going to get inebriated. And I think we had this almost internal dilemma with the virality
Yeah.
where it's like people are leaning into this drink saying it does this, gives you this drunk feeling when we didn't say
Right.
that. But I think people, once they saw the reviews, they determined it's not like, hey, this isn't drunk, but I feel calm and
Yeah.
I feel like the feeling that Hiyo gives you is always one that is very curiosity inducing
Right.
because you can't really put your finger on it
Yeah.
sometimes. But that really, yeah, like that moment spurred another influencer to create a viral video about it. I think it got 5 million views, and then another one got 3 million views. So all in all, I think we had about 8 to 10 million impressions from TikTok, and we definitely saw uh, the success of that in our retail data.
Oh,
Um,
great.
and
Yeah. I
yeah,
always wonder
I'd say
about that
we
too,
loved,
the conversion.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little bit lagged, obviously,
Sure.
because you need to just see
Yeah.
the how things happen a week or two later. But now, but then the strategy, it's like, well, what do you do? Do you go back to your marketing team, whatever brand you are, and say like, let's create viral moments? Like you really can't, um,
Yeah. You have to be
you can't
engaged
create those. You just
in the
have to,
conversation, and then kind of
yeah,
almost set the table or cultivate a environment where those things could happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're very grateful for those moments. We love when they happen. It creates a lot of excitement around the team, and I think our marketing team set us up for success in order for those moments to start happening. And we're just leaning in and continuing to do other type of influencer strategies in order to diversify our marketing spend away from just pure, Facebook, Instagram, and
Which is
Google,
amazing. Yeah.
and start tapping more into creator and
I love
influencer.
that. Yeah. And it's, even, I mean, I think that's a common goal that people want to do when when you're doing online, but it's hard to do. And it's great to see that you guys are
Definitely.
doing that, and you're seeing the resonance both to the category, but obviously to Hiyo and the brand itself. I want to go back to an earlier point because it resonates a bit with me with my own kind of background with starting up in businesses. You went to MBA school,
Mm.
you came from finance. The orthodox messaging would be never go into business with your friends. You separate
Yeah.
business and pleasure, and I've broken that rule. It,
Yep.
I'd love to hear your story about that because I've often heard I went have that same I've heard that as well, and I've always tried to square that circle. I only know my own personal experience. So I'd love to hear, with you and your co-founders, you're mixing business and pleasure. You're mixing friendship and professional collegialism. How has that worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the things that was ingrained in me in get while I was getting my MBA. People like don't start businesses with friends. Definitely don't do that. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm absolutely breaking that mold because I absolutely am gonna do that. Um, I think I think we've been lucky.
Yeah.
I think people say that like as a general rule,
Yeah.
but like I think on a case by case basis, it works the opposite, right? Like I think because I started this with two of my closest friends, like we have the ability to work really well together. We know each other's strengths, we know each other's weaknesses, we know how to like resolve conflict really well.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we haven't had like we definitely have had battles, but like we haven't had any like you know, the intensity of these battles have always been relatively soft in a way that we've been
Sure.
able to kind of get through everything together.
Yeah.
And I think on the other side of the coin, like it's incredibly motivating, right? Like I think our backstory of why we created Hiyo
Yes.
because of our family members
Exactly.
fuels our
Yeah.
fire that we are doing some good in the world. And then for me specifically, the fact that like how hard I work and how big Hiyo gets, it means we change millions of lives. And at the
Yeah.
same time, I also get to directly affect my best friend's life and my one of my closest girlfriend's lives. So I've found it to be yes, it's something business school and the world says not to do, but I actually wouldn't change it. I've really enjoyed the experience get to have with my friends here, and I think we've created a culture that I hope all of our employees and the people on the Hiyo team like love coming to work, love the mission and get behind the mission of what we're trying to do. And we're creating a really, really amazing kind of modern day company where, people can love what they do, love the mission
Yeah.
and love who they work with.
Yeah. I think it's great to see a live case. Um, I think people say it because that's what they're taught, but
Hmm.
it's coming kind of from a textbook. Um, but there's real practice that can show why there's other ways. There's more than one way to skin the cat. So it's just great to see and hear a success story where friends and business can mix. Because I think sometimes people might someone tells you that and you believe it. And how many businesses never got started because people just kind of bought
Right.
into the trope, when in fact, there's actually lots of success stories, not the least of which yours, where that's just not the case. So that's great to hear. Um,
I think
Sorry, go
I
ahead,
think you
please.
just have to be. I think you just have to be cognizant of it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like I understand there's the stereotype, and as long as you're aware of it and kind of have really solid communication with your friends and your co-founders or whatever that may be, like you'll be able to navigate anything.
Yeah.
So we've been aware of it. It was again something I was wary of in the beginning stages, just because of what I was just taught in business school.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
as long as you're aware of it, you can navigate
Well,
it.
and I think we throw the term friend around. It's true friendship where there's the trust, and in fact, the business relationship can reinforce that as long as you have the communicate, like any strong, important primary relationship. I'm sure there's lots where that doesn't. If those underpinnings underneath the word friend aren't there, the trust, the support, not taking people for granted, then that's going to fall apart. But that's true of any type of initial relationship. So yeah, just great to hear. Our I'm out east. You're on the west coast. In the U.S., just like in other countries like the U.K., there's kind of certain epicenters for, I'll say, the better for you beverage, or low and no, or non-alc, functionals. There's
Mhm.
lots of subcategories in and around the New York, even Connecticut area, with us and Athletic and a couple other non-alc beverages, Constellation Brands, Sear Hill Spirits, is a bit of an epicenter. But I have to say, when I come out west to meet people, um, LA, or even more specifically, uh, Venice Beach seems to be a bit of an epicenter itself. Do you want to give a shout out to kind of you and some of the community you've got out there that seems to be kind of an innovation hub for the category?
Yeah, I mean, I think the west side of Los Angeles is chock full of so many CPG founders,
Okay,
not just in this
interesting.
category, but I think CPG at large. I'm not sure what about it has created such a strong community of people that are go-getters and trying to reshape the way that food and beverage is thought of in the modern world. But yeah, I mean, I think for us and our brand, I just talk
Sure.
about Hiyo specifically, like we all met at USC. Southern California is a big part of like who we are and why we are friends and why we started Hiyo in the first place. And as you can see from our branding, like they are very much inspired, like the gradients on our cans are
Yeah.
inspired by Southern California
Sure.
sunsets. We
Yep.
have an Easter egg on our can that is like the latitude and longitude of various beaches that Signy created the
Okay.
gradient based
Good
on.
to know.
Um, which is cool. But I think for us, it's more of like what a sunset and what Venice Beach kind of represents. It's like an easy way of life, something that makes you happy, makes you feel content with who you are. Like who can get mad staring at a sunset? But I think like at the same time, we didn't want the California roots of our brand to kind of be polarizing for anyone. So
Yeah.
we didn't lean in incredibly heavily to where your Kansas City Costco moms would feel like, hey, this is a California brand. It's
Yeah.
not for me. Like we, again, everything about Hiyo is about being warm and approachable and accessible. And yeah, just really
Yeah.
leaning into Southern California
Yeah,
vibes really
absolutely.
helps
I
us
think
out.
that, I mean, it definitely comes through, and it's been great to learn, like just knowing nothing about the space, to see how much innovation is going out there, and what you guys are doing, and
Mm.
the community you're a part of out there, which is great. Um, Kind of taking a step back, where you are, where you came from, where you are now, and then going into the future, without giving away any strategic trade secrets. Can you share with us a bit about what's in store for the three of you and for Hiyo, and any thoughts on the category in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting time for the category. I think in all of beverage, there's no hotter category than the alcohol alternative space. I think the category is starting to make pretty major waves into retail. You have the sachet
Yep.
curated set in Target.
Yep.
You have kind of Sprouts leaning in really heavily. Whole Foods is starting to lean in as well.
Yep.
So just focusing on natural specialty and a little of that bigger box retail, I think is a lot of the focus for a lot of groups and brands like Hiyo. So I think we're definitely collectively building the category in retail, showing why it deserves some space on the shelf. And I think what we're seeing from a velocity perspective across the entire category, not just Hiyo, this is a brand, or this is a brand in a category that has massive pull from consumers. So I think, and I think a lot of the brands are kind of similar to Hiyo, where they were built online, because they all launched in the same time as ours, when the time as us, where, there wasn't any other channel to meet customers than online. So I think we're benefiting from both having strong footholds in D2C and now starting to enter into the retail world, first starting with natural specialty. And then I think conventional and mass is kind of next up in terms of, getting the Krogers and the Albertsons of the world to start buying into the category as well. For Hiyo specifically, and it's not a secret because we kind of announced it this month, and it's definitely happening. But we inked a deal with Insomniac Live Nation in March of this year. It was an 18-month deal in terms of negotiations, but we're excited to have kind of an activation and distribution footprint in all of their festivals, music venues, and concerts kind of across the country. And I think what we're trying to do, as a category, but, just to talk about Hiyo specifically, is change culture, right? Like, we are trying to make it more socially acceptable to drink less.
Right.
And I think alcohol is so ingrained in society. Like, obviously alcohol is not going anywhere, but, trying to get hands into the people that do move culture. And for us, that's musicians, that's actors, that's entertainers. Yeah. But at the same time, like, trying to shift and create more optionality when people are going and seeing their favorite DJs or favorite artists or favorite bands, I think is incredibly important. Like, those are some of the happiest moments that people have. And those moments should not be dulled by alcohol.
Yeah.
They can be
enhanced remember
by
them.
drinks. Yeah, you can remember them, and they'll be fun, and you'll have an experience with the brand. So we're really leaning into the music category as kind of our third channel in terms of direct consumer, retail, and music. So it's not really a strategy secret of the future. It's just really some place that we want to invest heavily and have a presence in. So I think that's really, like,
that's amazing.
We like to oversimplify things and keep things super simple. So it's continuing to scale online, and we're launching on Amazon. It's continuing to build the category with our other brands in the category in retail. And then it's a focus on music for us.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it's also great to see the entertainment side picking up on that, knowing and obviously responding to consumer demand. I have to think in terms of what's happening at festivals and events. So great to see you guys are at the forefront of that. So yeah, Evan, listen, I've really appreciated the time. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Congratulations to you and your founder and friend team for everything you've accomplished, and looking forward to seeing where things take you.
Awesome. It's great chatting, and thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, Evan. Take care.
Thanks.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Alcohol Free Radio. We welcome any suggestions or ideas for this podcast and other content that we share with the Better Roads community. So please reach out to us on social media, on our site at betterroads.com, or via email at hello@betterroads.com. And it's been great to be with you here all together. Take care.